Okay, 12 February 2021. The purpose of this video is to teach you how to not fall for a red herring or a false buy point. So the market has opened here. You can see the Dow and Nvidia doing their thing. And you can see that this is 30 seconds into the market by looking at the black box at the bottom. So what we're generally looking for here is we want Nvidia to drop and we want the Dow to give us an obvious sign. Now, what could happen here is you see Nvidia drop and the Dow give an obvious sign, and then it ends up being a false buy point. The way to detect that is the Dow has not yet dropped in any significant way. Like this small drop here doesn't really count. So let's see what happens. So right now it's about almost 2 minutes into the market, minute and 40 seconds into the market. You can see the little black box, which is telling you what time it was at in the second to second behavior of the two graphs. So we've had a drop of Nvidia, and as we know, look for a U-shaped pattern. Okay, so we have our downtrend. One might erroneously think, let's now look for the signal from the Dow, but the problem is the Dow has not really moved down at all. So this could end up being a false signal. So for example, Nvidia's dropped, it's starting to level off. One might get the idea that this is a good buy point right here. Oh, look, the Dow is moving up. This is a buy point, and they might buy right here. Now, if they did that, there'd be a small profit, and they'd be waiting for a real profit. But the truth is, because the Dow has yet to drop and has not made any downtrend, this would end up being a false buy signal or a red herring. And notice that it drops. This wouldn't have been enough to make any real profit. This might have been a 1% profit. And of course, you would have lost it right away because it dropped. So we're going to wait for both the Dow and Nvidia to travel down together before we look for the buy point. We still haven't seen the Dow drop at all yet in any significant way. And when I say significant, I don't mean it has to go way, way down. It just means it just needs to have traveled for some time steadily down for us to even consider looking for the buy point. So I'm just going to zoom out a little bit so we can see the relative shape of the Dow. So now we're finally getting this drop in the Dow and drop in Nvidia, and now we're going to look for the buy point. Because we've had our down trend from the Dow, and notice that the Dow has been rallying for a little bit. This is the buy point right here. It has been rallying for 30 seconds. And if it stays that way, yeah. So that was the buy point right there. So now at that buy point, look at the blue number. I'm going to put the cursor where it was. At that buy point, Nvidia was at 599. So just to clarify, this had dropped, the Dow had dropped, Nvidia had dropped, Nvidia had leveled out slightly, and the Dow had been rallying for a good 35 seconds. And that was our buy point. And notice from that point, Nvidia has been rallying nicely. Now one might bring up the point, well, after the Dow rallied, it started to drop, and it's just been dropping since. Interestingly enough, that doesn't seem to influence the catalyst action, which results in this rally from NVIDIA. This motion here, this maneuver from the Dow, this 35-second 45-degree angle rally from the Dow uptrend, is a trigger that triggers this motion from NVIDIA. Just because it drops after does not prevent this from happening. So that's how to avoid a false buy point. I knew this wasn't a real buy point. This one over here, the 33 mark. I knew that wasn't a real buy point because the Dow hadn't really dropped to any degree. After it had dropped in a more dramatic fashion, and NVIDIA had dropped in a more dramatic fashion, I simply looked for the rally. And in this case, it was a 35-second, 35-degree angle rally trend, which is one of the buy signals. The other thing that would have been a signal is if it had just gone straight up.